Welcome back to the channel. Today, I just want to talk about how I renovated my burned out unit in my one of my apartment complexes, which costed me $30,000 to make it brand new, and it only got me $50 more in rent. So let me break it down for you. So as a reminder, I bought a 20 unit apartment back in May of 2022, so pretty recently. And there was actually one unit that was completely burned out, right? There was a grease fire that happened 5 days ago, or 5 years ago, not 5 days. And the owner didn't bother to renovate it, and it's probably because he got really cheap insurance, right? If you're part of my course, I teach you to never skimp out on insurance. You always want to focus on after repair cost or after repair value insurance. So had he had good insurance that I recommend, could have had a brand new unit and pay very little. So anyways, there was a burned out unit, so I'll just call it burned unit, and that costed me 30,000 to renovate. So I got this from my hard money lender. They're willing to give me, so I'm going to do HML for short, hard money lender, which they gave me $10,000 to renovate. So I effectively used 30,000 out of the 100,000 to renovate this burned out unit. All right. So I just finished it recently. We I posted a lot of the photos of it on my Instagram, so you can check it out over there at Making Multifamily Money, as well as the YouTube communities tab. I definitely posted my newly renovated unit, but we're listing it for 550, and we're struggling to rent it out. Surprisingly, I thought this unit would be the most popular. It's brand new. It includes, I think we got LVP floor, brand new kitchen cabinets, brand new kitchen, fresh coat of paint. We had to put drywall everywhere, new bathroom. So this was a pretty extensive renovation. I mean, it was pretty nasty before. I also posted some photos, but I thought, like, given this would be the nicest unit, it would get significantly more in rent. So we're listing at 550 in rent, but we have no biters right now. So it's still on the market, and there's still a lot of other units to renovate. So let me show you my other unit. So there was a unit that we probably, let's just call it unit number 11. So let's just say unit 11. And this one was decent. It already had LVP flooring existing. Um, I think it had like a dark brown paint. So like a dark brown paint, which isn't ideal. I mean, it makes the room look a little darker. It does look clean, but it makes the room a little darker. So, if it was me, I would prefer like a medium gray paint or a light to medium gray paint to brighten up the room. And, it had subway tile bathtubs, which isn't the most modern, but it's not bad either. Um, so, subway tile, bathtub. So literally, I just said, okay, well, for this brand new unit that we renovated massively, we're only getting 550 in rent. So let me that means that that's definitely top end of the market, right? That means that no one's buying right now. Given it is the holidays, November, December, people don't really want to move during this time, so maybe we're not having the best pull right now. So maybe this might rent out later once it becomes January, February, March, when people get their tax returns and want to move around. Anyways, back to unit 11. It was pretty decent condition. I think we did a make ready. So make ready. So So what is that? That's basically, touch up the paint. Are there any holes in the walls? Repair that. Maybe we can reglaze the subway tile bathtub for maybe $200 to make it look new. Like just very minimal to basically make it ready to rent, right? So basically, it's clean, everything works, there's no major damages. It's just a livable unit, and I think we spent around $2,000 to do this make ready. Um, Given that the prior owner was unfortunately a slumlord, so there's a lot of deferred maintenance. But let's say we put in $2,000 to make it ready, and we rented it out for $495, right? So if you kind of look at the math, like, all right, I basically did bare minimum, spent $2,000, and I got $495 in rent. Versus my burned out unit, which I spent $30,000 to renovate, I'm struggling to rent it at $550 a month. So what that kind of tells me is that this market is definitely more affordable housing, right? During my performa, I did anticipate around $500, to be honest, when I was underwriting this. So my performa, I was guessing around 500, but I was hopeful, right, that I can aim a little higher. But once I realized this concept, I said, at this point, it's not even worth it for me to spend, eight to $10,000 per unit to renovate and make it look modern, because the market doesn't need it, right? They're happy with very minimal renovations to make it, um, I call it clean, functional, and then modern when you can, right? So LVP flooring is modern. It's very functional and it's clean. Dark brown paint. I mean, it's not the most modern, but it looks clean. It works, does the job. Subway tile bathtub. It's functional. If you want to clean it up, you may want to reglaze the tiles. If there's a broken area, you might have to rip out the bathtub and put a bathtub kit, which costs maybe around $800 at Home Depot. But like I said, we don't need to do very much to get this rent. Like, so at that point, I just said, well, I don't want to spend $8,000 to $10,000 for a modern unit just to get $50 more in rent. So that pivoted my strategy completely. Like I that's what's beautiful about apartment complexes is you get to test your model essentially, right? So I did. I did one premium renovation. Spent $30,000. I mean, this is the burned out unit. It's an outlier, but typically it is $8,000 to $10,000. Let's just say I spent $10,000 now, only for a $50 bump in rent. That doesn't seem as worth it for me, considering I have a hard money loan, right? So I'm paying 9% interest only right now. So for me, time is of the essence, right? I want to get out of this hard money loan and find some long term financing, so long term debt. So once I understood that I don't need to do $8,000 to $10,000 per renovation to make it modern, just for $50 more in rent. Instead, I'm just going to do $2,000 rent readies, and then I hit my pro forma. Like we literally had a tenant, or we showed a tenant one of my units which had carpet, and honestly, it wasn't the greatest carpet. It had some dark spots, but we brought in a carpet cleaner, cleaned it, had a couple dark spots, and just said, "Okay, well, we'll rent this out to you for $495." And she said, "Yeah." She was fine with it. Like they just were fixated on it being more affordable, and then over time, let's say the first year it's $495, but maybe after a year of renting of us, we raised the rents to $515. Just very natural and organic. So basically, the market is telling me right now that they're not willing to pay $550, even if it's for a nicer unit, right? So that's at least right now in January, February. So overall, just kind of want to share the conversation that I had with my property manager, and it was very eye opening to see that I basically spent $30,000 to renovate a unit just to get $50 more in rent. And honestly, the burned out unit, unit 11, were advertised at the same time. Like when my property manager shows a unit, they actually only show the nicest unit, the burned out unit. But ironically, they end up choosing the unit that had very minimal renovations, and they were still for a $50 savings, right? So it's just very eye opening, interesting to me, and that's what's beautiful about owning multiple units is you can test your model. You can have a premium unit and see if it's even worth it, right? Like in my 26 unit, um, I spent 10K for reno, and then my rent went from 350 to 700. That's worth it, right? I'm getting basically double the rent. So in this case, it's definitely worth it. But in my case, like they're just happy with minimal renovations for $500. Like, why would I spend any more? Unless the unit was just that bad and I can't save it. In that case, I may spend money to renovate it a little more expensive. But then that's gonna pay my strategy. Like if I had the option between some cheaper material options, I'll probably take it, right? It's like a laminate countertop instead of quartz granite. So now that I know my market and what they want, I can pivot my plan accordingly. And what's nice about doing this, the make ready renovations, is it's a lot faster, right? Like we can renovate these rapidly. I think they're doing two right now, so we're going to rent those out for about $495. When the burned out unit, which is nice and ready to go, it's still available for $550. It's just sitting there, and I just want to rent out these units immediately to get into long term debt. So once again, hopefully you learned from my story and my conversation that I had with my property manager that sometimes you don't need to over improve your properties and still get the higher rents. So for some context, and I forgot to mention this way earlier, but the existing rents were around $300 as it. Like when I took over the property, it was 300. So if you see here, I was able to raise it to 495, doing very little, right? So that's kind of the power there. Anyways, hope you found value and hope to see you in the next one.